This Alabama basketball fan's been waiting for the proverbial anvil to fall on his head. That Alabama is just rolling right along. Well, I wonder if I shouldn't look up.
Are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Good. Wore a black shirt. My arms grew back.
There you go. God, no. Whew. Lucky you. Jimmy, we've been talking about on this podcast for a while about when Alabama is doing so well in basketball, we always wait for the piano to fall on our heads like Wile E. Coyote. Yes. And there may be a reason to be worried. There are very strong rumors, and I would say as of this recording, which is at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, we have both basically confirmed there is something happening with Charles Bediako's knee. Is it awful? Is it season ending? Is it just going to be painful and he can work through it? Is he going to miss just a game, 2 games? None of that we know. Something happened with one of his beautiful, beautiful knees. And it is frightening because he was playing fantastic. In fact, this is ironic, Jimmy. Today, as I'm driving into work, I'm listening to the Field of 68 on Sirius XM, and they talk about, okay, what team should be number one? Alabama got ranked number one. Who should be number one? And they all basically said it should be Alabama. And, they said Brandon Miller is Brandon Miller. I mean, Mark Sears is Mark Sears. But 2 of them actually said, the guy that's really standing out to me is Charles Bediako. He's making a lot of things happen. Now, I'm going to let you have your moment on this, but here's why assuming it's not season ending or a 4 to 6 week thing, which could effectively be season ending, let's assume it may be a play through the pain or a week or 2 thing. Let's assume that. I can see this as, okay, let's silver lining this mother. Nick Pringle will have to play a little more. Noah Gurley will have to play that position a little more. The problem, obviously, is we play a really good team tomorrow night in Tennessee that's got some big people on it, and we could use a big person. But Charles Bediako is also very prone to fouling out or getting a lot of fouls very, very quickly. So maybe this will give some of the other guys time to shine. And every time, for the most part, Oklahoma notwithstanding, every time this year that it feels like Alabama might have a setback, somebody has always stepped up. So let's see if this team continues to have somebody step up. Again, I'm not trying to start out with something negative. I really wanted to start out with Alabama being ranked number 1, which we will talk about in the next segment. But this Charles Bediako thing just hit me like a grand piano from the 3rd floor this morning. And Jimmy, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thought is a grand piano hitting you from a 3-story fall would be worse than a bump to Bediako's knee. That's
your
one
opinion.
Thing.
That's your opinion.
I'm no doctor. I'm not a doctor. Yeah, exactly what you said. All I've been able. I don't like reporting things that aren't true. So that's why I do believe his knee is hurt. And it might be bad. And I know that's not a lot of information, of course, but I don't like saying things that end up wrong. But in terms of what we know, or what I know, is Bediako's knee is hurt. It could be minor. We could see him play Wednesday against Tennessee for based on what I know. Or he might be out for a considerable time, which could be season ending. So we don't know about how long he'll be out. I'll just tell you a guess. My feeling based on what I've been able to put together is he might be out for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks, which is bad. It's not good. As Luke said, it feels like sometimes with our basketball program for years, whenever something great happens, something terrible happens right after. Very on brand. Waking up to the news that Bediako hurt his knee in practice yesterday is like on brand for Alabama after something great happens. Okay, what would be the effect of losing Charles even for a few games? You could survive it because of the depth. I mean, the two guys that would eat up Bediako's minutes would be Noah Gurley and Nick Pringle. They're both good players. I think one of the ironic things about how good we are this season compared to last season weren't too good. Noah Gurley had to play a lot of minutes. And frankly, he was a little disappointing, I think, based on what we thought we were getting out of Furman. I think we expected more and thought Gurley would be better than he was a year ago. Now we've improved the depth to the point that Gurley plays a lot less minutes this season, but he's better. I think we thought we were getting last year. Just took him a year to catch up to the speed and size of the SEC game. He'd been playing at Furman. But Gurley's pretty good, and I think he's going to actually produce some offense that we don't get from Bediako. Nick Pringle will play more minutes. That's a good thing. Pringle might be the best pure athlete on the whole team. He's an amazing specimen in terms of running and jumping, rebounding, dunking. What he just doesn't have a lot of is what I would call game. And by that, I mean offensive skill. I mean, I don't really know what his shot is outside of the dunks, but hey, the dunking's good. and he's so athletic. He's helping you on defense for sure. Great rebounder. So Pringle and Gurley can help you, but they're not Charles. If they were, they would be playing and Charles would be sitting. Charles plays for a reason. And let me tell you, you can't replace a 7-foot guy with his wingspan on the floor. He affects things we don't see. We're a stat-driven society. When the game's over, we immediately look at the stat sheet. What are the stats? Charles does things that are very positive that aren't on that stat sheet, but he helped you just with his size and ability to alter shots, and maybe a lot of guys that are like, hey, I'm going to drive this lane, change their mind and make a business decision not to because they see Charles Bediako standing there. So he's helpful in many ways, and it would be a loss even for just a few games.
Yeah, you're right. And here's the thing. Look, I know we all enjoy watching Nick Pringle play because I think he might be the best athlete on the team. The game against Florida late in the contest, when it felt like every play was an alley-oop to Nick Pringle, and it was just throw it as high as you want to, and Nick will just go get it. I mean, it doesn't matter. He can go as high as he needs to. And so I've had several Alabama basketball fans say, I really want to see more of him. Why doesn't he play more than Charles Bediako? We're about to find out. I mean, it could be that maybe this is Nick Pringle's time to shine, and everybody's like, whoa, okay. Maybe even the coaching staff, they're like, okay, we didn't know you could do this in big-time game minutes. We didn't know that because Bediako was holding his own. But now we can depend on you a little more. Or it could be that it becomes blatantly obvious why Bediako is playing more. So I think it's going to be one of those two things. I guess fortunately, unfortunately, because I always hate it when injuries play a part, but Tennessee could be without two of their starters, their game time decisions tomorrow night too. They already have a lot of shooting woes. I don't think either one of them is one of their big guys. I think they're more like wing players, but Tennessee could be without some of their dudes too. And again, this late in the year, everybody's going to be probably dealing with some injuries. I mean, it's not the same as football, but you still played a lot of basketball, and Alabama's been in a lot of big time games and a lot of high pressure packed moments. So yeah, it's kind of shocking. This is really the only injury we've dealt with so far. I mean, I guess Namari Burnett earlier in the year, right? But it feels like for the most part, and I guess if you want to consider Javon Quilly not being there available at the first, but this is certainly the biggest potential injury of the year to date.
We had guys when Namari Burnett was out. We had a handful of guys that we had Rylan Griffin. We had Dom Welch, who was coming off the games he's missed, that he had missed. So it felt like we had more options when Burnett was out. I think with Bediako out, well, Pringle and Gurley can do some things, but they're not Bediako.
Yeah, Bediako's he's different. I need to tell everybody about FanDuel now. It's the midway point of the NBA season, and And now is the perfect time to download. That's what I would do. I'd go download versus download. FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, and it's the official sports book partner of the NBA and the NFL. Because new customers get no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and easy to use. You can't beat it with a stick. It's awesome. You can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to threes drained. I mean, they got all that micro betting stuff, whatever you want at FanDuel. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get in on your no-sweat first bet. Up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Also, go check out Locked On College Basketball. It's a lot of fun. And again, Alabama's the new #1, which we're about to talk about in this segment. So they will have a lot to say about that because, here we come down the home stretch. You're going to want to know more about these teams coming up. Locked On College Basketball is where you want to go. All right, so Alabama is the new #1 in college basketball. Again, not to be pessimistic, I'm thrilled. I love this. I think it's awesome. What a coup for the university. We are the only school in the last 8 years to be #1 in football and #1 in basketball in that time period. One of only like 10 or 15 schools in the last 25 years to hold that moniker. Of course, in the last 10 years, I think only 4 or 5 schools have been #1 in football. So, that's going to be a small pool to choose from. But it is a nice feather in the cap for Nate Oates and company. And just, again, the way the ball bounces, the way the schedule falls, whatever day you want, Alabama's going to have to play Tennessee at Tennessee. Tennessee is coming off 2 gut-wrenching, I'm talking about just disemboweling losses. I'm talking think Braveheart at the end when they were just taking out all his guts. I mean, they were just – and it's weird how eerily similar the 2 plays were, just crazy. And so Tennessee, I feel like, is either going to come out with their hair on fire or they're going to come out and they're like, what next? I mean, maybe they're waiting on the piano to fall on their head but here's the other problem I just thought about, Jimmy. Please, 8-pound, 6-ounce baby Jesus. Please. Jesus. Okay. It's 6 ounces. That'd
be terrible.
I don't think he was a preemie.
Worst Christmas story ever told.
They didn't even need a manger. They could have just, here's in your hands. That was kind of sacrilegious. Anyway, I don't want Tennessee to beat us when we're #1 in football and #1 in basketball in the same year.
Oh gosh. Whoa. I didn't know where you're going with that, but that was a man, you just punched us all directly in the face. That would be.
I mean, wouldn't that be the case if they won?
Yeah, I guess we were #1 when they beat us, right? Or was Georgia 1 or was 10 or were we 1 or Georgia 1?
I thought we were 1.
I think we might have been 1 and again, on brand, right? I mean, Alabama is between the Miles arrest, which was sort of like, what? I mean, when things go great with Alabama basketball, there's always, a kidnapping next. I mean, that's kind of, what happened, a few years ago. And here the on-brand thing is not only Charles's knee, but you're finally #1 for the first time in 20 years. And you'd like to remain #1 for at least a week, right? So who do we play? A top 10 team on the road. It's the first game we're playing after being ranked Why couldn't we have been ranked #1 the week that we went to LSU? But no, we have to be #1 the week that we're going to what I think is the best or second best team in the SEC, Tennessee, who's so good defensively. You got to play them in their place. They're going to be, like Luke said, possibly with their hair on fire after the 2 gut punch losses to Missouri and Vandy on last-second shots. Yeah, this is very on brand for Alabama to have. Hey, good news, you're #1. Bad news, the bus is headed to Knoxville. So we'll see what happens. There's a couple Tennessee players might be out. That could be helpful if that happens. They got some banged up dudes themselves. We'll see. And then you got Georgia at home, very, very winnable Georgia game at home on Saturday. So you get through this one and, wow, 14-0 is looking highly realistic. You get through this one, but this is a tough draw. It's the toughest SEC. The way the season has played out, Luke, this is the hardest SEC game on the schedule.
Well, and considering that Bediako could be out, and Tennessee is I mean, they're not desperate. I mean, somehow they're still ranked number 10, which I don't get. I mean, I think the AP voters just love them, and again, that's fine. It doesn't matter. But it's Tennessee probably feels a little desperate. I mean, this would be a monster win for them. I mean, I think, didn't they already beat Texas, and did they beat Kansas? I can't remember. Did they beat Kansas?
I don't remember either.
It doesn't matter. So anyway, it'd be a big win for them. Very quickly, the new bracketology came out. I would love this bracket, which means we'd probably be the second 1 seed to lose to a 16. Boy, do you see how quickly I go from optimistic to pessimistic? I mean, it really is record time.
All it took was one knee injury.
Yeah. But Alabama would play the winner of Alcorn State and FDU, and then they'd play the winner of NC State and Florida Atlantic. I can live with that, although NC State is dangerous to me.
There's no easy second round games. Here's the rest. The top 32 teams in the country are all really good. Every one of them. They're really good.
Here's the rest of the bracket. Creighton, Alabama, arch rival Creighton. Then Liberty, who we've already played this year and beaten. Indiana, who took us out in the first round several years ago in the NCAA tournament, and who took us out in 1976 on their way to an undefeated national championship. VCU, Iowa, Boise State, Marquette, who's really dangerous, Hofstra, Northwestern, who just beat Purdue, Auburn, that's interesting to me, Baylor, who's getting their act together, and Vermont. Now, I know I said a lot of good teams in there, but man, I like that bracket for us. I like the way it plays out. And yeah, if we get to Baylor, it's going to be a tough road. But Baylor's good; they won a national championship recently. But I think
Creighton may be the best team. Creighton and Baylor, but
yeah, I agree with you. Or Marquette.
Creighton's really good. I saw a good discussion this weekend on the TV set about who's the best team in the Big East, and my answer, of course, was it's UConn, right? But these guys convinced me that Creighton's better than UConn. So,
all right. Jimmy, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about a couple of offers going out for Alabama football. And we're back. So Alabama's offered Bobby Pruitt from down there in Mobile. This is a hard-hitting linebacker that Sterling Dixon actually alluded to the other day. It was like he copied him on a tweet or tagged him or whatever you do with tweets and said, hey, I'm going to get this guy to Alabama. And I was like, I hadn't really heard much about it. Yeah. Well, he's a heck of an athlete. He's also a basketball player, starting down there in Mobile since a freshman. I mean, that's tough to do. He seems like. Do you know anything about him? He's down there from your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I know a lot about him. Is Cam Pruitt. He goes by Bobby for some reason, but I guess maybe it's Cameron Robert Pruitt. I don't know, but to me, he's Cam because that's how Theodore lists him in the roster and how he's listed on rosters, but my understanding is his nickname's Bobby. But Cam is really good. I'm a little surprised, and by that I mean, I'm very familiar with him and know his game really well. He's basically been a starting defensive back for his first 3 seasons at Theodore. He kind of started out a corner and then kind of has been what I would call a move safety. I mean, he's a safety, but they play him all over the place. But really, he's a safety. At 6'3", 190, which is incredible safety size, especially for high school. But his best trait, Luke, is this cat is physical. He will absolutely knock your head off. He is a great hitter. So I think a lot of teams, based on his frame and based on his physicality, believe he's going to grow and become really more of a coverage linebacker type, a guy maybe playing special every down, Will linebacker or Sam linebacker as he continues to get bigger. His dad, Ettrick Pruitt, was a really good player at Southern Miss that ended up being drafted and playing a few years in the NFL. So that's his gene pool. What's interesting to me is I thought, Luke, it's a really good year in Mobile. It's not an awesome year in the state, but it's a great year in Mobile in 2024. And I had Cam, I think before recruiting really started for the 24 group, I had him about the 7th best kid in Mobile, which most years means, probably Southern Miss or South Alabama most of the time. But it's a really deep year, right? Well, I was wrong. I've now bumped him up to really about 3rd. And it's because his offer list just blew up. I mean, he's been offered by Alabama's one of the last to get on board. But what happened was, because Southern Miss, because his dad played there, Austin Armstrong, who was at Southern Miss, was recruiting Cam to Southern Miss. And then then Austin apparently talked to Alabama staff and Nick Saban, who approves all these things, into, hey, this is a kid we need to offer. He's good enough for here too. And he's got other good, I think he was offered by Notre Dame yesterday. So Cam Pruitt's a pretty big deal. Positional versatility. When I make this comp, it's going to turn some of y'all off, but let's just remember how good a prospect this guy was. He's a lot like Demoy Kennedy, who came from the same program at Theodore. And when I describe Cam Pruitt's game, it sounds like I'm describing Demoy Kennedy 3 years ago. Tall, can play DB, can really run. He's a big hitter. The question is, okay, what position is he going to play? We're still asking that about Demoy 3 years in, and now Demoy transferred out of the program, is going to play for Deion Sanders at Colorado. It is sort of similar to Demoy. Maybe it works out better because he ends up neatly fitting into a position. Alabama will find out what position that is this summer in camp, because even though he's got an offer, Luke, the majority of kids who have Alabama scholarship offers, really what they're told is, you have an offer from us. Feel free to tell everybody in the world you have an Alabama offer, but we can't take you until we see you in camp. We want to work with you and put you through our drills and put you in our scheme and see how you fit with our program before you're a take. There's a difference between an offer and a take. But Cam Pruitt's very likely to leave Alabama's camp at take. He's very impressive. He's been a college hitter for 2 years in high school, and Theodore is an outstanding 7A program. They had a great team this past year. They were undefeated for a long time. That's hard to do in 7A football. Before, I think they lost in the quarters of the semis in 7A football, and Cam Pruitt was a big part of that.
And finally, Jimmy, just very quickly, Jordan Ross gets the Alabama offer. This is a rush edge from Vestavia, very good player. And I've been waiting on him to get this Alabama offer. I think a lot of him. What do you think about him, and what do you think about Alabama's prospects?
Yeah, I don't know quite as much about him being from Birmingham, but I do know this: going into the 24 process, Jordan Ross was sort of a big name in Alabama. I think you saw him on the earlier list, ranked as high as number 2 or 3 in the state. He had a lot of big-time offers early, though not from Alabama. This is a classic edge rusher, very tall, very long. Again, this is how Alabama, this is what happens when you recruit nationally and recruit at the elite level nationally, is even a kid ranked that high from Birmingham. I think he plays at the Vestavia Hills. Even a kid is going to have to come to camp. He's going to have to come to camp. He's got the Alabama offer. Is he an Alabama take? He can prove it at the camp. And again, other programs can't recruit like that. They have to be making him the highest priority right now to be able to land him. But Alabama, recruiting the best edge prospects in the entire United States, can say, hey, we need to see you in camp to prove that you're actually one of the 2 or 3 best, because we plan on signing maybe 2 of the best edge rushers in the United States. So you got to come prove that you're that good. We know where you rank in Alabama, but we need you to rank among the top 2 or 3 edge guys in the country, because that's how Alabama recruits, which is a nod to Saban, certainly. But Jordan Ross has significant upside, long, lengthy edge rusher. Alabama's been recruiting those types extremely well in recent classes.
All right, buddy, that's going to do it for today's pod. Thank you so much for tuning in, making this your first listen. Go check out the Locked On College Basketball podcast. Be sure to visit all our sponsors like FanDuel and keep subscribing. We appreciate you guys a ton. Thank you so much. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Roll Tide till then.
Roll Tide.